Okay, there we go. This is the introduction to this is our new animation. If you like it and you want to win some stuff, provide a soundtrack to it. You can go to sonicstate.com/live for details on how to enter the competition. But that's it. This is Welcome to Sonic Talk. Sonic Talk number 388, which is the first of 2015. We had a couple of weeks break just the way that Christmas fell. I thought it was only fair to allow our guests, our generous panelists with their time, some of the more milestone days in the year off. So I want to say thank you very much for watching. Also, welcome and happy Christmas belatedly. Happy New Year to you all. And also, thank you very much to our sponsors, Isotope, who, if you stay watching, you'll find out details of perhaps who won the last copy of Iris 2. But again, this week, we've got another opportunity to win Iris as well as details on how to enter the theme tune competition. So winning all round is all I can say. So anyway, let's say hello to our various guests. We'll start with Mr. Dave Spears, because he was just being very Christmassy. Dave posted, of course, this fantastic version of Wish You a Very Merry Christmas, which was sort of quite sort of emotional and dark, but uplifting at the same time. Beautiful, I thought. Dave, how are you, Dave? Anyway, had a good Christmas?
No.
Oh,
yeah, of course I did.
No,
I did. Thank you. Yes, I did. I was only mucking about.
Excellent.
Yeah,
is that it then? Right, okay, right. I'll move. Yeah. You had a great Christmas, and did you get some time off? That's the most important thing.
I did, yes. Yes. That was kind of weird, the way it fell. It sort of seemed to, I kind of pretty much got 2 weeks.
Yeah, me too.
Which was just unheard of, really. I mean, Chris was amazing. He kind of made all these little plans that I was not to be bothered, which was just,
that's
a weird thing for me. But yeah, no, very nice of him.
Excellent. Well, glad to have you aboard, Dave, and always, as ever, welcome. And I'm going to go to the other side of the pond, Mr. Richard Hilton over there in the US. Rich, of course, is keyboard player for Chic and Nile Rodgers studio guy. Do you have a good restful Christmas, Rich Hilton?
I did. Thank you.
I am
very
so
much.
glad to hear that. Excellent.
Excellent.
So, are you back to work now? Did you manage to get a couple of days off?
Yes and yes.
Right.
And working and doing great.
It's a busy year this year. There's lots to talk about, lots of things. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. And also we have there in the West Country of England, Glastonbury Way, Mr. Mark Tinley. How are you, Mark?
I'm on my second cold.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's often what happens at Christmas, isn't it? You stop and then it all piles in.
I never ever get ill. I never get ill. And then on Christmas Day, I just started streaming with goo. And then I spent 2 days in bed. Well, not Christmas Day. I managed to get through Christmas Day. But I spent Boxing Day and the next day in bed. And then we went to the beach, actually, to Burnham-on-Sea, which was absolutely brilliant. And all the sea air and everything kind of helped clear it out a bit.
Cleared you out. Oh, well, that's good to know.
Then I got better. And then 2 days ago, it's just hit me again. Like, whoa. I spent yesterday in bed, so
well, I am sorry to hear that.
I don't know, bloody annoying. And like I say, I never get ill, so I don't know. And like, you kind of get ill when your kids are at school, and it's like been on holiday for like 3 weeks or whatever. So it's not got anything to do with children.
I don't know. I always get very nervous this time of year because obviously with NAMM just around the corner. In fact, we fly out on the 20th. So, I'm obviously going to be talking a little bit about that stuff coming up. But, yeah, it makes me nervous this time of year. I kind of get all into hand sanitizer and keeping away from sick people. But it's okay, Mark, because you're actually at a distance. I'm pretty sure there hasn't been anything that can communicate over Skype yet. That would be a hell of a worry. Anyway,
I don't know though. If I sneeze hard enough, I reckon I could like lay a cloud of something horrible over Bath.
Well, let's hope not. Anyway, and also we have Gaz Williams there, who has assembled a collection of little gizmos and gadgets. That looks like the complete range of Volcas. Gaz, of course, is a professional bass player and music technologist. Does a lot of stuff. You might have seen his Akai APC Mini review, which we posted quite recently, and I must apologise for that rogue edit. I wasn't quite up to speed there, but Anyway, Gaz, what are you doing on your knees down there in front of the altar of Volca?
Altar of Volca, I like that. Well, I thought I would just do a little performance of these things because these were Christmas presents.
Oh, nice.
And I've been having lots of fun, and it includes the new Volca sample.
Oh, right.
that was only released on the 22nd of December in the UK. So that's like a minty fresh new
minty
thing.
fresh technology, like it, and
Well,
white too.
Yeah. They've done it in like the MPC colours, I think, just as a little nod to the old MPCs, I think. That's my least. It is my least favourite of the Volcas so far. Yeah, because it's really it's cool, but it's just the others are much more fun to jam on. This one you need to be a little bit more. You have to kind of prepare things a little bit more. Whereas the other ones you can just really do stuff on the fly. You can do stuff on the fly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, and with it, when you get it, it comes pre-installed with 100 samples. But the first thing I did was just wipe all the samples and sort of essentially start filling it in. But I realised that it needs something to plug into, I think, so I've got it going into a little KP2 Chaos Pad. And these things are going for bargain price now. I think they've been superseded by KP2S. So these things, you can pick them up for about 45 quid.
Wow, and that is a bargain, actually. They're great fun, though. We did review one, and it was really, really good fun. It's just a sort of little widdly thing, isn't it? That really cool.
Yeah. But together, it makes those two really. I think it makes this one a lot more fun because it's much more jammable with it plugged into that one. And I should mention as well, because I know some people have been asking. All of them I've got plugged into a little. I don't know if you can see this here. Belkin headphone splitter.
All right.
Here.
Are you using them as a merger? Are you?
Just to merge them all in. And I got it going into my battery-powered speakers. So this whole little setup is all battery-powered.
It's flying free.
Yeah. I've got my first gig with them on Saturday. So
right, you didn't waste any time then. You got them on Christmas Day and you booked yourself a gig. Awesome.
Yeah, so I thought maybe it might be quite a good little practice to have a little practice run on the show today, just to sort of so I can go wrong in front of a bunch of people and just get the humiliation out the way.
And how do you see that working? Do you want to do that now, or do you want to save it for a pertinent time in the show? I'm not easy either way.
Well, I'd kind of like to do it now,
okay,
purely because I'm being a battery miser. I think these things
it might not work. Yeah, that's it.
They kind of what makes them fun is being on batteries. But
so how long is your gig going to be? Until the battery runs out?
Well, I've just ordered a big bunch of batteries for them, so hopefully. Actually, I have to say that the battery life on these things is really, really impressive. I've used them like solidly, like every day for a good few hours, I think. And I've only had to replace the batteries on one of them.
Okay, I've got to ask you something quickly. Which is your favourite one?
I think it's the Volca keys.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah, interesting stuff.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. And
I thought it was a bit noisy, but it was nice.
Noise schmoise, these things
what the hell?
Yeah.
Gaz, I think you should play some stuff.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. Right, let's see what goes on now. Right, okay.
Oh yeah, baby. Well done, Gaz.
That was quite shocking.
I guess the only thing that I find with those is you've just the ability to be able to. Oops, what have I done there? To be able to kind of expand the pattern and transpose things. That's not quite so immediate, is it?
But I think, to be honest, the step jump thing, and
yes.
I love the idea of just not giving a damn where one is, just losing the downbeat and just not even thinking about, don't even care. And doing all sorts of things in all sorts of timings. Because, like, you know, if I play this one, and I just hold down.
You could just trigger certain steps. It doesn't matter.
So, same with the drums.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And then it's so, like, I mean, I try to just make stuff up always on the spot, and sometimes it goes better than others. Then was pretty bad.
So, how long are you going to be playing to your audience on your first gig doing the Volcas?
6 hours.
I almost believe you there.
Well, I don't know. It's a late night. It's a late night party kind of gig, so it's going to go on for a bit. So it's just going to be a load of munted people chewing their faces off, and I'm just going to try and just blit their minds, I think is the phrase.
Excellent. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. And are they paying guests?
No.
Ah, well, so you can pretty much do whatever the hell you like.
I haven't a clue. I've totally muscled my way into something, so it's
hospital.
It's just hospital.
Old people's home. Excellent work. Excellent, Gaz.
Well, it's more like it's a massive mansion house, and it's an all-night party. And I'm just going to set up in a big room and through a big PA system, and just
see what happens.
I don't know.
Oh, that sounds like great fun. Well, good for you, Gaz. Seat of the pants stuff. I know you kind of quite enjoy that kind of approach, so good for you. So yeah, go for it. So I suppose we should get on in sort of topic. Before I do, just if there's any misunderstanding, the theme tune competition that we're running, where you have to download the theme tune, download the video and write a theme tune to our intro animation. You can get details of that sonicstate.com/live. The deadline is actually the 28th of January, so if you haven't done it yet, there's still plenty of time. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Right, well, let's have a look and see what's going on. Obviously, we're heading towards NAMM now, so there are lots of rumours coming out, and it's very interesting because NAMM is starting to shape up to be quite a big sort of synthy show. In fact, NAMM did, I think we might have mentioned it before, NAMM announced that their floor space requirements have gone up 100% over last year, or it was 50% or 100%, one of the two, but a lot, basically, for various sort of synthy and high-tech manufacturers. So one of the first things that we spotted was, if I drop that in there, this is an image that was sort of tweeted out, which has subsequently been deleted, so I'm glad I downloaded it. This is of a new Roland JD-Xi. We don't know anything more about it. It looks like a kind of mini keys kind of thing, perhaps something in the area of the Novation Mini Nova, or perhaps even something along the lines of obviously the Korg microKORG was massively popular and everybody wants to sell as many units as that, so I'm wondering whether they're going for that kind of thing. Interesting stuff. I know that perhaps not many people are going to be all that interested in mini key stuff, but it's certainly got the cat amongst the pigeons. It was one of our, I put it on Facebook, I think, and it just went absolutely mental. Do you think there's maybe a golden time approaching? I mean, I guess, Dave, there could be, you know, when we know we've got all the Iris stuff, and let's put aside the driver issue for a minute, if I may just mention that. But you know,
I won't say anything.
The notion of a new era. I mean, Roland are about due for one, don't you think, Dave?
Renaissance.
A renaissance.
I don't know. I'll
No.
tell you what shocked me about this picture, apart from the mini keys, and I was going to write, where's the bender?
Ah, yes, if you look at it, it's actually got pitch bender mod wheel.
What? No bender? No, it's quite interesting. I found, I guess it's a slightly larger picture, and obviously there's filter. It looks like there's four filter types, and you can see the cutoff and the resonance knobs. I can't quite work out what's going on the left-hand side. That looks like oscillator. But I mean, I'd kind of thought that this might be a kind of polyphonic IRA thing.
They could
which
be.
Would
Who knows?
make sense, wouldn't it, if they continue in the direction of, JD800, JX3P, JX8, all those kind of stuff. Maybe even a D50 in that kind of format. Who knows?
It could be interesting, couldn't it? I mean, what's interesting for me is the fact that, well, I'm not a full disclosure here. Roland actually did visit this morning and showed us something, which was not this. So that's all I can say at the moment. So
in fact, I thought about this and thought it's the perfect time to do the hoax. We saw the Behringer thing, didn't we? Which I think was just simple clickbait to get everybody talking about them over the Christmas period. And I was thinking, actually, it's the perfect time of year to just do some kind of mad render, make out that it's some companies, put it up on the net, and just watch everybody go mental.
Yeah, I suppose
either loathing it or loving it or arguing. It's quite funny, and it would literally be a kind of popcorn moment, wouldn't it? You just kind of like
sit back, like the beauty touch paper.
Yeah, it would be quite entertaining. I might do that next year.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I know, Mark, are you kind of excited by anything new from a company with the hit track record of Roland? Let's just say for their instruments, not for their drivers.
Okay, forgetting the drivers, I'm sure that they've heard me say that enough times that they're now addressing the issue, right?
Of course.
Hopefully. Roland already have everything in place to do this kind of thing, don't they? Because the V-Synth has some fantastic waveform things in it and a whole load of fantastic analog emulation. The V-Synth is like an analog synth and a sampler kind of together in one thing, but that all was born out of the Varios thing. So they've got all of the building blocks that they need to build this stuff. And I guess the where have I gone with that? ARA?
Yeah, ARA.
Suddenly for some reason. That is kind of that's kind of proof of concept, isn't it? So if that's working and people are buying it and it's and that's the direction they're going in, they have the capability to do so much more of this stuff and to release lots more analog-y kind of things that could be cool things where you end up with like lots and lots of synths in your room to play with. And if they do the layouts well with like lots of knobs to play with when you're playing with those synths, it could be a really cool thing, actually. It could be a really cool thing. And you know what? If they're completely standalone and they'll work by themselves regardless of the driver issue, then maybe that's not such an issue if you can end up with a whole load of really cool synths that you can play via MIDI in 30 years' time or 40 years' time. Because it seems like, I mean, digital's kind of really come to the point where it's as good as analog now, hasn't it?
In many ways, yeah. In many instances, not in every case, but yeah, I agree.
I mean, either my ears have got really bad or the technology's got really good to the point where it's starting to get very difficult to tell the difference between things when they're on records, the good ones. That's what so you know, and by that I mean things like the Nord stuff is really good because it's DSP based, isn't it?
Yeah.
So could be really good if it's proprietary DSP based stuff inside that thing and it's doing some clever stuff. It could be really good.
Definitely. One thing that was really interesting, I think that perhaps has been overlooked a little bit. You know, people see Roland as just this amorphous, non-changing entity, but you know, let's not forget that Mr. Kahashi has gone. You know, he's been very, very specific about not looking back and what have you. So that sort of blockage for kind of expanding into other areas has changed. There's been a change in management. The management have actually bought back the company from public ownership. So now the management own the company, so they can essentially do what the hell they like. You know, they don't have to worry about shareholders, which, in my opinion, is a really good thing for anything kind of creative and musical. I think it's a disaster when that happens to a company that makes stuff for creative people. So there could be all sorts of stuff going on. I know, Rich, I mean, I'm guessing a lot of, in your world, generally speaking, you know, much of your stuff is in the box, but I mean, there's occasionally things come along that make you just kind of go, oh yes, I'd love one of those. I mean, it would be great if Roland kind of fulfilled that niche again, wouldn't it? And started to kind of make hardware that really kind of excited a lot of people.
Yes, but I think this is sort of in the box. It's just in their box. No, because they seem to be building shells for software emulation products based on their legacy popularity, which is actually a quite smart thing to do if they can pull it off, and they've been pulling it off pretty well so far, and pulling it off at a reasonable price point, and pulling it off, directing it towards a market that doesn't care if these things are mini keys or not, and it looks to me like if this isn't the hoax that Dave so humorously suggested that it probably is, that it's another shell for them to write these engines into in software and be able to use multiple ones at on a licensed basis in a single shell. So it is in the box. It's just in their box.
It could be. I mean, we don't know the actual details of this. There could be some standalone stuff going on, or any analog. I don't know. Yes.
Well, Peter Kern on Create Digital Music seems to think that there's a digital section and an analog section, and seems to think, I think maybe people have like blown up the image and tried to have a good look at it. They seem to think that there's an analog filter and an analog oscillator separate from a digital section. So it's now I'm dubious about that, given what Roland's recent track record's been about, but that's quite an interesting idea, isn't it? That they would be merging the technologies. So I mean, that would certainly make sense. That would get a lot of people interested in it. On Mark's point about analog and digital, I think it is quite interesting because I've been spending a lot of time with the Volcas, which are predominantly analog. I have been marveling at just how undigital they are in the sound, and I do wonder whether digital can ever truly get there. I mean, it's almost all the weirdness that goes on that the digital might struggle to kind of get right. But so to have an analog filter in a digital synth, I think would be well, we've seen that before lots of times in the past,
etc.
Yeah. However, if they do that in a small little mini keys, I could see them maybe taking a leaf out of Korg's book with the success of the Volcas, perhaps, and trying to sort of get into there. But I am dubious, though. I do think it's unlikely that that's the case, but it's interesting.
We shall see. We shall definitely see. Which kind of leads us on to another, obviously, well, we could go in two directions here because there are topics that link to both of these things. So it could be either way, really. Perhaps what we'll do is, before we go there, we should have a word from our sponsor. It's not Behringer. If I press the button, then the ad will play. There we are. Iris, of course. iZotope's sort of flagship synthesizer instrument. Well, not that they've got a great selection of them, but this is certainly their finest, shall we say. This is the based on their technology that comes out of RX. Comes with an 8GB sample library. Iris 2 gets you started quickly with hundreds of new patches by world-class sound designer. All the WAVs supplied as 24-bit for use in any sampler, oscillator WAVs. Intuitive spectral selection tools isolate specific audio frequencies within and play them back immediately on your keyboard. Selection tools, lasso, freehand drawing of any size or shape. Multi-mode master filter. New modulation system with over 100 modulatable parameters. Sculpt your signature sound with up to 5 LFOs, MIDI expression controllers, and macro controls. Lots of envelopes, 5 envelopes, lots and lots of ways to do it. In fact, visualizations, you can see intelligent zero crossing, so you can drop your own samples in. I mean, the list just goes on. If you want to try it out, Iris is available at izotope.com/Iris. And it really is well worth checking out. And of course, if you've been a regular listener to the show over 2014, you'll know that iZotope sponsored the show. And one of the things they do is give away something every week. Iris 2, last show, we did actually have a giveaway. And I've selected a winner from the competition. Let me just go and find my document here. Basically, our winner is... And the winner is... I don't know if I can pronounce this correctly. This is Shunmuga Pillay at Shun Pillay, which is their Twitter handle. They tweeted the winning tweet last competition, so if they can let us know, then the Isotope Fairy, who's hopefully had a very festive, will be able to drop Iris 2 into their inbox, and they can enjoy that. And also, we have another competition, which I should also let you know. The drill is basically you need to be on Twitter. You just tweet out a hashtag to a couple of accounts, and I'll show you what you have to do here. Basically, the bare bones of it, if you tweet that, we're using the hashtag hashtag modern modulation. If you tweet that to @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc., then we've basically got a search looking, and we can pick a random winner from the number of entries. So if you want to win Isotope Iris 2, you could tweet just that, but you have got 140 characters, so stick something else in there as well. We do read them, and I know that they always do read them as well. And so we want to say thank you very much to Iris and Isotope for for giving us this prize and also sponsoring the show. So just remember, if you want to win Iris 2, hashtag modern modulation, one word, @SonicNick, @Isotope Inc. if you're listening to this on the MP3 version. So, there we go. Excuse me, terrible cough there. Right, so another item that we've got, this is really interesting, I think, and I'm going to go this direction, because this is more sort of DSP code. This is the Axoloti, which is essentially a DSP board.
Hi.
That you can program yourself.
Axoloti. Let me introduce you to Axoloti.
Which has MIDI I/O, audio I/O.
Axoloti brings patch-based sound programming into a standalone device.
So you
Connect
can
Axoloti to a computer and start creating your own sound. The Axoloti editor works like an analog modular synthesizer. Select modules, connect them with wires, and tweak the buttons and dials to taste.
So I'm not going to play all of that, but get the idea. I mean, it's kind of a little bit in concept like the idea of the Nord modular, but you buy each module separately. This is, at the moment, it's an Indiegogo campaign, and it's actually, they're trying to raise, let me see, I've got a link here, €25,000. They've got, what's that, about a third of the way, and for €60, you get one. And there's various other ones. I'm not sure about. There's the top one, which is €9,001, which is you get the prototype, which may not have that sort of value in it, but it's a very interesting notion. And I know, in terms of, I mean, I don't know about the editor. Looks like it's only on PC. Oh no, actually no. I tell a lie. The editor was running on PC, but it's actually a Java editor, so it run on OS X, Windows and Linux, so you could just throw it in anything you like. I know, Mark, you were very keen on the Nord lead, weren't you? The Nord modular. Does this sort of thing appeal to you? It doesn't seem. It seems like it's new, but I know it's not.
I watched all the videos for this, got really taken in by it. Yes, it appeals to me a lot. I would have to hear it. I would have to, because the thing about the Nord modular is there's something about the Motorola chips and the DACs that they used in that synth that make it sound really good. So I you know, it's not necessarily the technology of the Nord that makes it sound good. It's the fact that it's a high quality circuit that's going on. And I think sometimes with VST instruments, especially me, I have a tendency to play VST instruments through my laptop's inbuilt sound card, and then just plug a set of headphones in and think, oh, it sounds a bit crunchy, but it's going to, because I'm using a bloody sound blaster, and then I'm going, oh, well, these VSTs don't sound as good as modern instruments, or, you know, as Nords and things like that, or hardware synths, but of course they don't, because I'm using the laptop sound card, and I think if I was using like an RME Fireface or something, I'd probably be going, wow, these VST instruments sound really good. You know?
So you think it's down to the I/O, right?
Yeah, but so I want to know what the I/O is like on that, and I looked up the processor, and because I wanted to know how that processor compared to other kind of DSP based chips with, and I noticed it's got a floating point unit.
It's a 180 megahertz
really
ARM Cortex M4 for those who are interested.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, it's certainly got some power or some punch to it. It's hearing it would be really important for me, and it would be like, would that actually fit in anywhere? And then of course, how do I record it via my laptop sound card? No, I'm joking. But you know, and then if it can do things like if I can fill it up with a whole load of patches and samples and because it has got an SD card, so I'm assuming that I can put samples in it, because I've heard an 808 emulation running on it. I'm guessing that's probably samples rather than individual synths, but I might be wrong. Somebody might have written really good individual synth modules for each of the 808 drums, which would be pretty impressive in itself. But if I can load it up with a whole load of stuff and then just have it in a little box that I can plug into my MIDI guitar and then go and do a gig with it and have all my sounds to hand and know that it's in a stable setup, that would be interesting. So I'm very interested in it, actually. I want to follow its progress and see what happens with it. I don't know if I'm going to spend €9,000.
Not for the prototype, perhaps. No.
No, I might go with. I might buy one just because it looks like something that would be, But I'd have to buy the program thing that goes into the 10 port breakout cable as well, so that I could actually control it from another place other than the computer.
That looks like this thing here, right? Which is a kind of
exactly.
some kind.
So it's got like patch numbers on it and some buttons, and you could flick through it. And then, I can start making my own synths, theoretically, can't I?
Well, that's the interesting idea.
Out of an old keyboard.
It does sound kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Definitely. I know, Dave, does the idea of this kind of, we've seen a few attempts at this kind of thing, haven't we, where you just buy a little bit of hardware and you make it, configure it. This seems so far the most promising for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it just feels like it can do more. And looking at some of those patches, the DSP that was used in it seemed quite low. It rarely seemed to go above 30%.
Yeah, I looked at a fair few of the vids. I thought it had been well thought through. Needs a bit more excitement on the GUI front, I thought, but hey, that's probably just me.
Yeah.
I'm always getting that from Chris. It's like there's one pixel out this, and it was just like, oh yeah, that's quite bland. And the controller thing I thought was a good idea, and I was kind of following it through in a similar vein to Mark, and then I just got to this point and went, I know for me, I would probably buy something like this and never use it, because it's one of those things where life's too short. A bit like trying to program 11 sub patches on the Mini Monster to morph to and from, Some people go, yeah, I love it, and I get really into that and deep, and other people just go, no, life's too short. And then I started listening to the sounds, and all right, I am spoiled in what I've got at my disposal. There was not one single sound there that I thought I couldn't create using various things that I've already got, and probably in a more convenient, instrument. So yeah, well thought out, well executed. Obviously, I'm not giving him a hard time at all, but probably not for me for those reasons.
Interesting. Rich, I guess for the similar sort of principle. I mean, obviously, life is a bit short for sometimes for these things, but I mean, perhaps it's not aimed at the working professional for whom time is an issue. I mean, this is I like the idea of being able to tinker with it, and it's almost kind of the notion of Raspberry Pi type approach.
Exactly. In a world where Raspberry Pi is cool and people have gotten into kit level homebrew design oriented sound design building stuff, I understand this product completely, and I think it's really cool. My initial response was almost exactly word for word what Dave said about the GUI, but yet in that world there's something apparently cool about making it look like it's playing out of a monochrome monitor in 1978 from some primitive operating system. In other words, the fact that it looks so completely basic and primitive may be part of its appeal and relate more specifically to those sort of Heath Kit hobbyist builder types who just sort of dig that and don't care about spending resources on the GUI. Again, like Mark said, I'm interested to really hear it, but I suspect it'll sound fine. And seems like a pretty cool thing to me.
Yeah.
Is it for me? Probably not. Like Dave, I'm not really. I don't really want to get up in the morning and build an instrument every single day, but it's kind of cool. It reminds me of TurboSynth, if anybody remembers that, which was an old
it does actually
design product. It's quite a bit, and I've always wished somebody would do that. And on some level, Reactor is that too. in the Native Instruments world.
Yeah.
So it all kind
Very
of represents synth on paper, and that's cool.
I know, Gaz, with your newfound Volca business, are you? Is this something that appeals to you? Or throw a couple of those into the live set as well?
Yeah, it does interest me quite a lot. It can't act as a USB host, though, can it? It's only acts as a USB client. Is that right?
Yes, I think the USB aspect is just for programming it and maybe giving it some power. I'm not sure. I think, yeah.
So, okay. Because I think I want to get maybe I've got a Raspberry Pi. I might try and build a little Raspberry Pi to act as a little USB host and other bits for my little current setup, so I can use some of my USB controllers and the OP1. So I was kind of, when I first saw that, I thought, oh, that could be quite nice. But then I thought, oh no, it's not quite what I was looking for. However, I am quite interested in it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how many. Well, firstly, if it gets funded, which I think it should get funded. I think.
Yeah, I think this time of year is obviously kind of tricky. It hasn't gone up in the sort of leaps and bounds that you sometimes see. Where they just go way overboard. I mean, I hope that they do, because they're not. I mean, €25,000 sounds like a lot of money. Certainly is to me. But I mean, in terms of a kind of general spread, I suppose if you're only offering mostly $60, €60 kind of increments, it's going to take you a lot longer. Then maybe they need to granularize their offerings a bit more to reach it.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the GUI is going to put people off, isn't it? Because it is very crude. The GUI. Although saying that, it is quite readable as well. So. Well,
not that much difference to Max MSP, really, is it?
Similar. That's what it made. That's what it made me think of. Sorry, Mark.
It looks like Max MX. It looks like Max. It also looks like the Nord modular. But okay, I'm going to throw one other thing in here into this mix, though, because my favorite modular synth, which is why I ended up selling my Nord modular in the end, is Martin Fay's Vaz modular, which is absolutely brilliant and is a VST instrument, but you can use any of it to process VST stuff. So you can drop it as a VST instance after. You could have like drum loops playing and stuff, and then you just start feeding them through a modular synth, and that to me, it's just like all my processing is just kind of right there at my fingertips,
right
in my computer, coming out my crappy sound card. But his GUI is sort of similar to that. It's not really hugely bells and whistles, but it's prettier than that, but it just works as a VST instrument, and I think that's brilliant, and it's got all the functionality that you would expect from a modular synth. So all the waveforms and LFOs and envelopes and just all. And if you've never used it, go and just Google Vaz modular. Go and try it.
It's been around for a while, actually. That I think I've
VAZ. It is not VAG. Vaz. It's my cold.
Very different things. Yes.
Can I just before I forget? Can I just put a little request in for anyone who could possibly help me out in making this thing Raspberry? So basically, I want run a Raspberry Pi. I want to run this class compliant Allen and Heath mixing desk off the audio. I also want it to act as a MIDI router, so I can plug various MIDI devices into it. So
I think that should be possible. I've done something similar here because I've got. I'm just I plugged some Novation stuff into the Pi, and that just acted as a MIDI interface. So I'm sure routing it. There are possibilities for that, definitely.
And I want to run it headless, and I want to be able to record audio out of the USB mixing desk.
No, that's unlikely, just because of the we're talking about a phone processor, really. So it's probably
only two tracks of audio.
All right, we'll see if we can get that sorted. What, Monday? Okay for you for that?
Yes, please. Hooray! Okay. Result.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I mean, the other big news, obviously, with NAMM coming up, there's a couple of things that we should probably look at. I mean, one of the big pieces of news is obviously we've got the ARP Korg stroke whatever it is conglomeration has now got its own website, arpsynth.com. And it looks very much like they're going to actually be releasing, or certainly previewing the hardware at NAMM in 2015. In fact, I'm trying to get an appointment so I can get to see some one-on-one time with it. And so that's going to be kind of quite a big news. But obviously we had that same thing from Behringer, which was interesting. I mean, Dave, you've just released the Odyssey, which is a fantastic instrument. If you haven't already seen the piece that Dave did with us, it's great. I mean, it's more than just a monosynth, though. So this is a very different thing to what this is. I mean, is this something that interests you? Will you be thinking, I wouldn't mind one of those, or have you got enough of them already?
We've got something like, I think we've got 6 Odysseys. But no, I'll get this. I hope. Chris, can we have one of these? No, I'm sure we will. I'm going to be really interested to do some kind, A/B comparisons between each of the
I mean, if anyone
models.
was going to be able to know the difference, you'll pick it up, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I obviously I know the Odyssey inside out. There are some very interesting quirks. Hold down 4 notes, even though you won't hear the 4th note. There's some interesting LFO stuff that goes on. So yeah, I know it inside out. I'm very intrigued by this. I should say that I think Korg have been on fire for the last few years. I disagree entirely with it being called the ARP Odyssey. It should be the Korg Odyssey. ARP always will stand for Alan R. Perlman, who I have had the enormous privilege to meet in the last few months. So I know his involvement or non-involvement in this product. And I know who is behind it. It's obviously David Friend, who was the lead developer on the original Odyssey. So it comes from a good pedigree. So really, for me, at this point, although I keep hearing about mini keys again, why do I keep hearing that? Is that true or false?
I have no idea, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I would imagine it would make sense not to have mini keys unless they're just trying to cut down on the amount of stuff it takes to make one so they can keep the cost down. But I haven't heard anything about that at all.
No, I've just heard that from a couple of people.
I think people are probably,
I don't know how accurate any of this
I
stuff
think
is.
people are probably kind of going MS-20 mini and just thinking, yeah, it must be. But whether that's the case or not, it's an easy supposition to make.
And with the original Odyssey, I mean, the sliders were always the Achilles heel of that instrument. And also there were things like, this is why people like, Herbie Hancock and George Duke were amazing on it, and Chick Corea were amazing, because there was no notches on it for concert pitch. In fact, there was not even a 440 tuning reference, switch on it like you had on the Mini Moog. So you had this, it would be really nice to see it being able to be pulled back into concert pitch, those oscillators being pulled back, and also decent, reliable sliders. Well, so for all of those reasons, it's really exciting.
It's interesting. If we look at the image here, you can see that those knob caps are not the same slider caps. They're kind of, they've got larger plastic things on them. So you can see there's you can't quite see what the switch types are, but certainly.
Well, it's funny. They look like ARP Axe things, and don't forget when ARP were at certain points. I mean, ARP were always in kind of financial difficulty, as it were, pretty much after the release of the 2600, I think. I mean, the 26 did really well, but everything after that, they were always kind of bouncing around. And they would do things like, for example, in certain quadras, there was no primer. So they would just try and save money by just spraying on the bare metal chassis, which is why you have those certain ones of those will chip and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
The paint will chip. So when it comes to things like sliders, even certain chips, sometimes whatever was kind of lying around the factory, it was like, oh, we got an abundance of those. So there are some Odysseys that exist that have completely different slider caps on them.
Right.
In fact, what's interesting is when our 2600 went wrong, took it up to Kent, obviously, who called me and just went, dude, this is a grey Mini, but in a Tolex box. None of there was certain part of it that had gone wrong. Some of those components, he said, when this was made, they were pretty much obsolete. These must have just been sitting around the factory floor, and they're like, oh, we'll just bung those in a couple of these to get it out the door. Anyway, this is exciting, but for me, it's got to be, the beauty. And I kind of laid into Diego probably unfairly a few months ago on here when this was first announced, when he was saying about how does it further music. For me, the idea of putting that duophonic ring mod mode that you and I talked about when I was down doing the Odyssey piece with you into the hands of the great unwashed or people who haven't had the luxury of being able to afford an Odyssey is really exciting, because some of those tones are absolutely beautifully, aggressively amazing. And on that point, I'll shut up.
Interesting. Rich, I'm guessing, you are an American, and it's an American instrument, and presumably it's got. I mean, certainly over here it had. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. Over here it was used by sort of more pioneers of kind of rawer electronic dance music, pop music, whereas in America it was more of your jazz funkers and your kind of jazzers who were using it more. Your Herbie Hancocks and your kind of Chick Corea and those kind of guys. Is there a different perception of how this is going to go down, perhaps in the States, than over here, or a different expectation even? I don't know.
Well, as usual, I feel slightly uncomfortable speaking for the entire United States.
Oh yeah, well, what the hell? Let's generalize.
But as far as my own feeling about it is concerned, I'm quite interested to see how well they've done, and if they've actually come up with a better solution to, say, the slider problems that the originals had, and how does it feel under your fingers. And it could be a very, very nice thing. I'm quite happy that they're doing it, and it was some years ago that I suggested to some mutual friends of ours that they might want to do a 2600 with actually a software audio basis that would also transfer into a hardware box that would fully work, but would allow you to also use it, the same stuff, within a computer environment. But nobody did that, and somebody's doing this, and that's cool too. And in the meantime, if I want to go software, I have Oddity 2, which I'm very happy with as well. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's great. I think it's cool. I think I'm happy that David Friend found himself some friends to do it with. And Korg is on fire, and they do some cool things, and it's nice to see people doing cool things. It's sort of the contrast to the Roland thing we talked about before, where they're building these generic shells to host virtual recreations of their classic products. These guys have actually decided to go ahead and build some classic products and offer some of them as kits. And I think that's kind of cool, and it also feeds into that whole Heathkit mentality that I was talking about with the last product, where people like to build stuff again these days, and getting in and doing them, so that, it's all makes sense, and it's all cool to me. I'm happy about it.
Excellent. I know, Mark, have you got anything you'd like to add to that? I don't know the Odyssey very well, so I can't be particularly specific about it.
Have I got anything I'd like to add to that?
That's all right.
I don't know. I think everybody said everything that needs to be said. Again, I want to hear one and play with one, and just,
yeah.
The first time I encountered an ARP, I couldn't make head nor tail of it, because I'd grown up with a Roland MC202 and an SH101, and suddenly I was given a whole load more knobs to play with, which, once you work out how to use them, is really cool. So it's the kind of thing that I guess I would probably want to spend 2 or 3 hours with, just tinkering around with it and playing and just having a nice time, I guess, and see what it sounds like. So I'll wait for it to come out, and then I'll go and visit a music store if they've got any left.
If there are still anyone. Gaz, you wanted to come in?
Well, sometimes you see kind of kit car versions of classic cars, like an E-Type Jaguar, it springs to mind, and you just look at them and they just, there's something about them. It's kind of looks almost like it, but maybe the suspension or just the way it just doesn't quite, it's just not quite right. And I wonder how this is gonna come together, whether it'll look lovely and you'll just want to touch it, or whether it'll just, I don't know. That yeah. So because we haven't any idea of the price. That hasn't even entered the equation yet, has it?
Yeah, we don't know what it's going to be yet, but
right. So that's the biggie, really, isn't it? Is this going to be an affordable thing, or is it is it going to be like the MS-20 Mini, which is a very capable synth, but it does feel pretty cheap, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's the thing that's interesting to me. It
is interesting because people have this kind of quite veiled sort of notion of what original MS-20 was like. And the MS-20 hardware, the panel and the knobs, yeah, fairly solid. The keyboard was really crummy. You play the keys and they go donk. You know, they're really noisy, cheap plastic kind of. They're not good.
The original one.
The original. It's not a good. You know, it's not a good keyboard by any stretch. You know, everything else is sort of fairly well bolted down, and I suppose that does differ.
They're solid. The panel's solid though, isn't it? I mean, it's really quite thick metal.
Yeah, that's
on
true.
an MS-20.
Well, and same on the kit MS-20 as well.
So I mean, I guess then it kind of comes to this thing, you know, with excellent emulations like the Odyssey, for instance, you know, then it's got to have that appeal. So when it's sitting there in the studio, that it's, you know, that's almost as important as how it sounds, I think. In terms of if it's going to sell.
Yeah.
But it's an instrument, isn't it? It's like if I play the guitar, I can sit for hours and hours and hours playing the guitar, fiddling around with different nuances of things and just, you know, playing. So this is an instrument, and as much as you play the keys, the stuff that's in front of you that you fiddle around with to play with the sound and change the nuances of the sound, that is the skill of a synth player as opposed to somebody who just plays a keyboard. And it's an instrument, and you get lost in it, and you learn how to. What the hell was that?
I'm not sure. Yeah, no,
you learn how to just kind of get in the vibe of it and just like kind of, you know, make it do things that other people don't do with it.
I would agree, and I don't necessarily think that. I mean, obviously, I'd love it to be kind of built like a tank, beautifully solid and everything, but I don't think that is the primary concern, because I mean, I remember I reviewed the Sledge, the whatever that one is, the Studio Logic Sledge, and that was built really flimsily, but as an interface to interact with, it was incredibly good fun and inspiring to play with. You know, there is an aspect to it that means, you know, if it's the price is right, I still get that relationship with the hardware. Okay, I might not want to chuck it in a bag because I might snap all the knobs off or whatever, but that's the case with many other things as well. I mean, I would like it ideally to be well built and affordable, but I think it's unlikely to be both of those things just purely because of economics. Anyway, that's enough of that. What about this then? This is, of course, an Elka Synthex. This was a video posted by a chap called JMP Synth. This is a whole track made with it, apart from the drums. But we'll let it develop a little bit. It really does sound lovely, actually. And I know Will Gregory's got an Elka Synthex, and it's great fun. It's a proper poly. And I'm only playing this because because I found the news of the fact that it looks like Jem and Lem and Elka are being kind of not reconstituted, reborn, re-released. I'm not quite sure. There's all sorts of information. It says General Music keyboard and pro audio products manufacturers, legendary brands Jem, Lem and Elka will be back in 2015. 125th anniversary of General Music. I'm not sure what they started building 125 years ago, but I'd be interested to know. Maybe you know. It will offer unbelievable Italian sound, whatever that is, together with superior technology. Made in Finland, which is interesting.
Made in Finland.
What? Made in Finland. Interesting, Dave. What are you? Because you didn't you have some kind of association with General Music way back in the day and did some stuff on something at some point? Is this exciting news? Do you know anything you can tell us about? Have they been calling you?
No, I don't. And this is another kind of So we have the ARP Alan R. Perlman Odyssey, made by Korg in Japan, and let's try and put into perspective the relationship back in the day between American synthesizer manufacturers and Japanese. So that's a kind of weird situation. And now we have a Jem, Lem, Elka, which is thoroughbred Italian, being made in Finland, which is kind of strange. There's a great YouTube video. Actually, do you know what? I think all that proves is that branding is everything, which I'm a great cynic.
I wonder who bought the brand. I wonder who now owns it. That'd be interesting.
And it originally started as a company called Galanti, and they made organs and accordions, and they have a huge pedigree. Like I say, it goes back, well over 100 years. And I was involved with things like they did a piano called the Pro 2 and another piano called the Pro Mega, and then another synth called, I think it might have been called the Equinox and stuff like that. In fact, weirdly enough, there is a relationship with that Studio Sonic Sledge in that the guy who was demoing that on the videos, this guy Gianni Giudici, and he worked at General Music, and they were amazing because they employed really, really top flight musicians. So everybody who worked there in the kind of musical department were just phenomenal musos. And the engineering side, I think a lot of those guys went to Korg and stuff. There's a YouTube video of the factory that's just like decimated.
Oh yes, I saw that. It was huge, wasn't it?
Which was really very sad, yeah. And I like them as a company. I never really got on with the name Gem and General Music. Lem was the kind of amp stuff and, PA stuff. But it was very highly regarded in Italy. I don't really know what else to say. I don't know anything about this. I was actually there when they acquired the Elka brand. And we went down to one of the Elka offices and found some Synthexes in the cupboard. And I should have liberated them. I really should, because if I remember correctly, and we are going back to the kind of mid-90s, the next time we went back, they'd all gone. So somebody had obviously made a killing on that. But yeah, no, really interesting. Really interesting. It's not a brand that I ever thought I'd see be resurrected. I absolutely loved going to this company because they were all proper Italian men, and once a month they'd all get together and they'd cook for each other and they'd all criticize each other's cooking. And he had the best Parma ham because it came from that side of the mountain, and it was just proper man cave stuff. Utterly brilliant. I knew nothing about food until I went there, and then it was like, wow, I want to come and live here if I can. Anyway, yes.
Excellent. Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I hope. Well, we don't know whether it's just a branding exercise or whether they're actually going to start building stuff. That would be interesting. I mean, I'm guessing a lot of the know-how of the designers who built some of those early, things. Those guys are just going to be, probably too old to kind of maybe contribute as much as we'd like them to if they're going to release Elka Synthex. That is a complete sort of wish. That's a wish rather than an actuality, I'd like to say at this point. I guess.
It's funny.
Well, you got to look at the way the market's going. The people, because I mean, being made in Finland is the real kind of clue there to something new money maybe, or new investment. There's definitely something going on there.
Genelec are the only Finnish company I can think of. Are they Finnish or are they Danish? I think they're Finnish.
No, they are Finnish indeed. Yes. So, it's that is really interesting because I guess it's not the cheapest place to get stuff manufactured in Finland. I would have thought. So, and like a lot of that Italian stuff was always not the most expensive. I mean, the gem stuff was quite expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was not cheap. It wasn't ever kind of cheap, was it?
Right. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see which products from the past would actually have the. Well, we mentioned the Synthex, but I mean, of the gem products, which ones of those would be likely to make a comeback? I can't really think of any.
I believe, if I remember correctly, people speak highly of some of the key beds in some of the gem instruments, and I don't know if they made them themselves or whether they were supplied by someone like Fatah or whatever, who are, believe it, also Italian. So I don't know whether that's the case.
So that's going to be the interesting thing. So obviously the Synthex is probably out of all of those brands the most obvious one. Would you not think?
I would certainly hope so, but I can't imagine how they'd be able to make something like that in any way affordable.
So I mean, a lot of the Elka things were quite interesting, weren't they? Some of those. A friend of mine's got one of those. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's like it's a multi-manual organ, but it's got a monosynth built into it. So the top manual can also be a mono. No, I tell a lie. A polysynth, but albeit I think it might be a divide.
Randy Rimbaud in the chat room says Finnish company Soundion OY Limited bought General Music last month. So whatever they are.
There we are. Mm-hmm. So don't know. Interesting. It's interesting, but yeah. So I'd be interested to know what products, whether they're looking to build new products or reissue ones, really. And I
have no idea.
Because Jean-Michel Jarre, he used to use an Elka, didn't he? That was He had like
I believe so. Synthex had
the mirrored one that was all covered in little mirrors. So I think that was an Elka.
Nice.
That was just, yeah, he used it for the laser harp sound, didn't he?
That's which is everybody ever does, don't they? If you've got an Elka, you post your version of the Jean-Michel Jarre laser harp patch. Yes.
Do you want to hear a funny story? Oh, well, no, actually, go to everybody else first, and then I'll tell you a funny story.
Rich, does this mean it's interesting that this notion that brand is the key thing, and that's what it's been happening in certainly in a lot of other industries where people are buying the brands and reusing them. There's lots of shenanigans going on in sort of the communications technology and what have you. I mean, are we just seeing a reflection of that perhaps in the MI industry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting. But I guess what's encouraging is that they're seeing it as a potential moneymaker, which must mean that the buoyancy of the whole sort of area of this is considered to be worth the investment, which is good.
Well, they're tapping into genuine romance that people feel for certain things. And I don't think it's limited to the music instrument business either. But in general, there is nostalgia and romance for certain things of certain eras in certain product lines. And right now, that's what's driving a lot of what these companies are doing for lack of having any new technologies to exploit outside of, say, Isotope and Isis. Is that the name of the product?
Iris,
whatever. Yeah. Iris. Outside of that, pardon me, there's really not much new technology, and maybe Spectrasonics, but even that's an old design at this point. There's not a lot of new technology being exploited, so they've chosen to go the romance route and try to stimulate your interest in owning a manufactured ARP Odyssey made in Japan, or a virtual JP8 that runs in some little synth box shell that you can access both from your computer and from the front panel, and it runs in software. Like all of this is tapping into romance.
Yeah.
They're trying to build products people will buy, and people buy what they're interested in. And right now they're interested in all this romantic stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid
UA
point.
does the same thing. UA's whole product line is built on this.
That's true. That is true. But what they're doing is also providing very high-powered DSP innovation to allow them to run those things. So that's a very different. I suppose that's what's different about them. Mark, does this hold any excitement for you?
Well, I've always liked the Elka Synthex, but I've been doing some research while you've all been talking about things. I've been on eBay, and actually, I'm always very excited by things that are orange. And I found a Gem Model P deluxe combo organ, which was pre-Vox Jaguar Continental. And apparently, as far as I can make out, Gem used to make Vox Jaguar Continental. So they made the keyboards for, well, according to this guy, they did anyway. They made the Vox Jaguar. And this thing looks really cool, actually. I'll post a link to it in the chat room. It's an orange organ with various different sounds on it, horns and strings and all that good stuff, and it's got the inverted key bed as well, and it's got really nice knobs on it. So if they reissued that could be exciting.
Yeah, maybe they're going to do some organs. That would be interesting, definitely. I also feel there's one other topic I would like to cover before we go. I mean, this was one of the Synthtopia open mic things, which is what's the best new electronic music technology of 2014. They've been posting a whole bunch of best software, best hardware, best synth, best whatever, which sadly as an editor I've rather failed to do for 2014, which was rather stupid on me really, because it's guaranteed page views and lots of debate. But I thought we could have our own sort of little mini roundup of stuff that maybe was applicable to you. What you felt was kind of some of the highlights of releases from 2014. I know, Rich, have you got anything? It doesn't necessarily have to be synth. Anything studio wise that you think was kind of innovative for last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Dynamic EQs,
Right.
which actually Colin McDowell got to market first, but other people have jumped up more recently and claimed it like it's their own. But in any case, in both of those products to which I refer, which I believe one of them is Isotope and the other one is Colin McDowell's McDSP product, those are outstanding devices that do amazing things that heretofore would have been seen as impossible to do. And as such, if I had to actually narrow it down to products and product types, it would be that. But if we can talk about it in the broader social sense, it is for me, as I've been saying throughout, the continued growth of romance as it relates to the products from, for the most part, my youth, which was the late 60s through mid 70s in this business, and how much interest there is in generating stuff that does what those things did on some level, whether it be in hardware or software emulations within a hardware shell or just software emulations or whatever. And in the modular interest and everything, it never in my life, including when it was first invented, has there been more interest in this stuff. And now the possibilities of integrating it with our traditional DAW formats and our various Ethernet MIDI interfacing and such, it's really a very cool thing. I don't know if it has anything to do with selling records, but it's way cool.
Well said. Hello, Dave. What do you say? Apart from Odyssey 2, of course.
What was the? Oh yeah. No, I don't do any of these polls. In fact, whatever came top on any of the polls, I would go and buy the polar opposite, because actually, I don't want to be the same as everybody else. And I understand you guys as kind of copywriters and all that kind of stuff have to get page impressions and people bitching and arguing over stuff. But for me, these whole things are just utterly futile.
Well, I think
and really dull, and just really, really dull. Anyway, yes, I'll shut up now.
All right then. Okay. Well then, I'll come to you, Mark.
What's the most exciting thing that I've seen last year?
Yeah, I guess so. Or the most relevant. I mean, it doesn't have to be kind of anything particularly popular or whatever. It's just really more to do with the kind of the technology of making music, I think.
I don't know. I don't know. The fact that things are getting faster and I think the computer is the most relevant thing still, because computers are just getting more and more powerful. And the most relevant thing to me is that I look at systems that I was using 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and what was considered to be really difficult to do then is just becoming easier and easier. So I suppose, annoying as it is, things like GarageBand are brilliant because they allow anybody to make music. And I know people who just load GarageBand up and then throw some acoustic strumming things onto a track and then sing on it and go, oh, look, I've made a record. Now, in one sense, it's annoying because you sort of think, well, who are you to do that? You've got no skill at all. But then, and I've spent 30 years honing this skill. How dare you go and make something that sounds really good, like a record like that, without doing all the groundwork. But then on the other hand, if they've got the innate talent to just think of think of something musical and to be able to throw it together like that, and it enables them to do that, and it brings new raw talent to the table, and you hear people who you could never have heard before making records, then that has to be a good thing. So I think just overall the whole direction of music technology and the accessibility of being able to write music. So I mean, I reckon if I put a computer in front of my mum with GarageBand on it, she could probably make a reasonable tune, you know. So, and that to me is probably a good thing.
Interesting. Gaz?
Well, iPad Korg completely nailed it at the beginning of the year with Gadget, which has grown over the year and has it ties in with what Mark is saying, actually, to be fair, in that it's very accessible, it's really easy to use, very powerful, sounds terrific. So I mean, that was an amazing, I think from that would be my iPad app of the year. And now they've, with the module thing that they've done, which gives you pianos and organs and more traditional keyboard instruments, which you can then open in Gadget as well, which is a fantastic thing. So it's that I think is brilliant. Really, really good. Other good ones. I thought Reason 8 was really good, actually. I thought that was a really good update on that. Ozone 6 with the dynamic EQ. Dynamic EQ has, I would concur with Rich, is an amazing thing, and that's revolutionized my mastering. It really has. What else? I've got this thing here that I'm always going on about Sonus. This came out 2014, the volume. It's a brilliant pedal. I love this development in terms of making pedals have almost like synthesizer depth of control, loads of different LFO shapes, and rather than your typical pedals, which are kind of quite limited. So I'm really keen to see more things coming out like that, which are complex and nerdy, but also tough and could be jumped on. So I think that's cool. And yeah, God, I think there's been loads of cool things. Still waiting to see some of those Behringer X32 spin-offs, the XR18, which I've mentioned a few times, looks really good, but actually has failed to surface in 2014. So I suppose that makes that irrelevant. Pretty cool. But plenty. I think
plenty. No, well, good for you. I mean, I think for me, it's probably to do with I think. Although I'm not a Cubase user, I think that the way that Cubase have really pushed the whole notion of workflow. Workflow seems to have been a very big deal more in 2014, and making this stuff usable in an actual creative situation rather than become like an IT project. That's been, we're not there yet, but it's definitely going in the right direction. I think that's kind of quite big news.
Cubase 8 and its chord pads, I think, is it's great, and that actually ties in with Machine as well 2.2. We've talked about this before, where this idea of scales and chords, making those more accessible and
in a sort of pro environment. The other thing for me is actually it's probably very predictable, but the Moog Sub 37, even though it's just another synth, there's something about it that really feels like it feels like an encapsulation of, as far as you can pretty much go with regular kind of analog synthesis in terms of that format. It feels like, for me, it really does feel almost like a kind of a mini Moog for the 21st century. It's really got something special about it, and there's a lot of real thought and depth gone into the way that you interact with it and the way that it works, and it feels like a kind of apex in many ways of synth design in terms of usability, and I think that's a good thing, and that hopefully will give a lot of other manufacturers something to aim for in terms of how to create hardware that you can interact with musically. So I think that's a really important thing as well.
Oh, and Electron Rhythm as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Plenty there to be going on with. Mark, have I asked you yet? I'm sorry. I feel like I've just been waffling on.
Yeah. You did, and I had a big rant about
that's
computer.
Right. Sorry. That's my one thing I would like to do is probably get some more RAM for myself, because my short-term memory is really shot, and I haven't been to NAMM yet. Obviously, NAMM is going to be coming up. We're going to be going over on the 20th. We'll have another show pre-NAMM when I'm sure there will be more rumours and stuff we can harp on about and find out. But I do know there is some cool stuff coming that I can't talk about because I'm legally bound not to. So
what about that other topic that we were going to talk about? Have we got time to do that?
I don't think we have. 20 past 5. I'm going to have to shoot. I know that Dave. Have we got time for your story though? Was there a story, Dave, that you wanted to run in? And the chat room are demanding it, but I don't know. Was it to do with the general media?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So Mr. Scruffy here gets an invite to go to Italy, where there's lots of sharp-suited Italians, and it's like, can you help us kind of with this and with this and with this? And it was things like, workflow and operating systems and sounds and things like that. And one of the things, I might have told a version of this story before, one of the things was sounds and patches, which they were really great at, but because it was because of the amount of characters on the LCD, obviously the sound names were truncated because they were put down the bottom. So Q, a very scruffy Brit, trying to convince some very sharp-suited, smart Italians that you cannot have an analog bank of sounds where analog has been truncated to anal. And anal slave is probably not a good idea call a patch.
How did you do this through a translator? Or just through just through gesture and mime?
Yeah, through mime and dance.
Excellent. That's a great story. Were you successful, I suppose, is the only other question to ask.
Do you know, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember. It was very funny. There was loads of them. It's like anal waiting and anal slave and anal something. And it's just like this whole bank and everything had been truncated to anal. Anyway.
Perhaps not. Anyway, thank you very much for that tip. We're going to have to head off now. I've got to get back to family life, and where I've got a lot of credits to earn before I go away to LA for 10 days. But I'm working on it. So please do join us next week. And remember, if you want to enter the competition, the theme tune competition is still available. sonicstate.com/live. It closes on the 28th of January. You can win the iZotope Creative Bundle, which is worth, I think, $5.99 now. I was wrong. When it was $4.99, it was reduced. Now it's $5.99. So $599 worth of prizes, and the obviously being at the front of the show every week until we run another competition. But I want to say to all of those who have already entered, amazing work, guys. It really is very impressive and quite humbling to know that so many of you are so able and able to produce such fantastic stuff. So thank you very much so far for all your entries, but keep them coming. We've got time. So I also want to say thank you very much to iZotope for sponsoring the show. Remember, check out Iris 2 and enter the competition. I'll just put another quick plug on there. You just have to tweet the hashtag modern modulation, so hashtag modern modulation to @SonicNick and @iZotope Inc. So once again, thank you very much, everybody. We'll say, Rich, thank you very much for joining us. Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. I already said that though, didn't I? Yes.
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Rich. And also to Mark Tinley over there in Glastonbury. I hope your cold gets better and you're back to your full fitness shortly.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what else to say.
No, I suppose not. I didn't really
Thank you
leave that
very much
open.
for having me, even though I'm ill and grumpy.
No, you did fine. Thank you very much. Also, Dave Spears there over GeForce Software, makers of fine software instruments. Did I mention that? In the Synth Cave. Check out the Odyssey 2. Really is a great piece of work. Congratulations. I hope you're selling millions of them and looking on eBay for yachts and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, thanks, Dave. Be always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And Gaz Williams there over in Bristol. Thanks for your Volca performance. Good luck with yours. Is it an open party? Can people come to that, or is it a closed party?
No, it's a closed one. But yes, but hopefully going to open some minds with some intense acid chaos.
Good for you. Well done. And just to be clear, it's modern modulation, not modern modulations. Anyway, thank you very much. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time.